I rise like the sun sometimes, but then I fall. Like a black moon, I rise when the night falls. When the night falls, the mic calls, so listen, it's the ultraviolet rays that keep me rising on the mission.
What up, all my Exceed the Hype Beast? Welcome back. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button, because you never know when your team breakdown is gonna drop, alright? On this episode of As the Lake Show Turns, we are gonna talk about Luke Walton and the chances that he is replaced as the Lakers coach. So, we have heard all the talk about Luke Walton possibly not being the guy for the Lakers. Well, there are some reports around the league now saying that if the Lakers do decide to move on from Luke Walton, that Mark Jackson is a coach that they will look very, very hard at. Now, I think that's a very interesting choice. We all know Mark Jackson and his coaching history, which was pretty okay. But I'm not so sure that Mark Jackson is a upgrade over Luke Walton. Let's think about Luke Walton for 1 second. Very smart coach, very good with the X's and O's. He runs very good and very effective offensive sets. He has been steadily building up the Lakers defense over the past couple years, which they still look weak at sometimes, but sometimes they look like they can hold pretty strong. He isn't necessarily that great when it comes to player development, which is a big thing for coaches. And a lot of fans have been complaining about his decisions when it comes to lineups, whether to close the game and throughout the course of the game, what combinations of players to put out there. He's been getting a lot of question marks from fans all across the country. Also, generally players, past players, current players, they just don't respect him as much as they do many of the other coaches. Now, when you look at Mark Jackson, for instance, I always thought Mark Jackson was weak when it comes to choosing systems to have his teams play in. He doesn't typically choose systems that maximize the player's strengths, in my opinion. If you look at the Golden State Warriors, as soon as Steve Kerr got there with his new system, putting those players in position to succeed or whatever, the Warriors have never looked back. Whereas with Mark Jackson, they were losing in the first round to the Clippers and things of that nature, even though they had basically the same team. Typically, in Mark Jackson's teams, the offense tends to look stagnant at times. So that's something that you don't necessarily get with Luke Walton as much. He's not necessarily that great at maximizing talent, in my opinion. However, on the positive side, when it comes to Mark Jackson, he is an excellent team builder. We all know that Golden State Warriors team was as thick as thieves back when Mark Jackson coached them. He even, had the whole team come to his churches on Sundays to hear him preach sermons and all kinds of stuff. So that team, and it would be the whole team. It wouldn't be a couple players. It would be the entire roster in that church. So we all know he is very good at team building. I think Mark Jackson is very good at player development. Now, Steph Curry, you can make a case that as good as Steph Curry is, had he not had those years under Mark Jackson, he wouldn't be the player that he is now. So same thing with Klay Thompson. Klay Thompson was not expected to be this. Everybody knew he could shoot and defend, but nobody expected him to be this. This was a lot of work done by Mark Jackson to develop him as far as confidence and everything. Same thing with Draymond. Even though he didn't necessarily trust Draymond, he used to start David Lee over Draymond, but it was through the training and the development of Mark Jackson that Draymond Green, was able to shine in the NBA. Also, Mark Jackson is a very great defensive coach. One thing that has the Warriors, so hard to beat now is the fact that their defense is so strong despite having a strong offense. Steve Kerr, while great, he did not come in with the reputation of being a defensive coach, and he even said out of his own mouth that his plan wasn't to change up the defensive principles that the team had, that were going to keep those same principles that they got from Mark Jackson and just change around the offense, and that's basically what they did. Also, Mark Jackson is well respected around the NBA. Coaches, other coaches, players, past players, future players, everybody respects Mark Jackson. LeBron respects Mark Jackson. So he has that going for him as well. However, in my personal opinion, I don't think it's a great decision to take Luke Walton out at this point. I think they should stick with him, just because he's familiar with the Warriors and he's also familiar with these Lakers players. And if they can get it together, I think this Lakers team can do some real damage in the Western Conference. Also, the league released a memo today talking about players and tampering, all stemming from the little dinner that LeBron and Anthony Davis had after their meeting last week. Now, real quick, I'm not going to go into this memo too deep. They're just basically saying, hey, lay off of Anthony Davis or whatever. But in my opinion, opinion, I feel like this memo should go to media members as well, because for all we know, LeBron and Anthony Davis could just went out for lobsters and then, you know, talked about what's going on in each other's lives. They are, I want to say label mates, but they're on the same agency, sports representation agent. So it's the media that blew this story up, and that always blows the story up. Anybody LeBron talks to or whatever that they think he's recruiting. Now, as that may be true, but still, it's always the media who blows that up. So I feel like if there's a bone to pick with anybody tampering or making comments about players or whatever, I feel like it's the media that the NBA needs to be directing these letters to. Because remember, it's also the media who always is asking players questions about other players on other teams. That's my little take on that. But anyway, basically the NBA wants you to lay off Anthony Davis. However, let me know what you guys think down below about the possible coaching change that could be taking place with the Los Angeles Lakers, and also about the NBA reminding teams and players to stop tampering, especially with AD. All right, leave it down below.